This week we're looking at several poems that have parodies of them. Parodies are for humor, and they're somewhat reductive. You never get as good of a sequel as the original, especially when you're just doing a schoolboy kind of prank of the original. So let's start with Matthew Arnold's Dover Beach. One of the most famous poems of its era, late Romantic period. You have a man and a woman. Actually, if you look up Arnold's biography, you see that he wrote this when he was on his honeymoon at Dover Beach, so it would be his wife there in the background. And the parody, of course, is calling it a girl, and then gives her a voice that she doesn't get in the original. But let's look at the original first. You have dramatic monologue, so he's talking to his wife there in the background, and for a honeymoon he doesn't seem to be having much fun. He's getting very philosophical. Maybe he's had too much to drink. Now I'm starting to parody him, but he's really quite depressed there. He's not a happy man. Things are okay at first. You have the beautiful sea. They're glimmering, vast, looking down from a height at the water. The spray, though, of the waves creates a grating roar, and that seems to be the mood changer right there, where you have the pebbles crashing with some heavy surf, creating this kind of ceaseless, eternal note of sadness, grating on his nerves over and over, coming to shore. And so what should be, a happy time on his honeymoon, beautiful evening, isn't for him. So he makes an allusion to Sophocles, who mentions in his plays the water. To the Greeks, the water was the source of life, but it was also a source of death from drowning, from invasion. Invaders came by the sea, and so it was a source of danger as well as the birth of new things and the life-giving fish they would eat and make their livelihood. They were traders, so they would make money from trading, but it has both life and death. Also, this poem seems to indicate a changing of faith from religious faith in the Bible and Christianity to something new and different, scary at this time. That what do you do when you lose your religious faith? What do you replace it with? He doesn't have any answers. Things look dark. Christianity is a very positive faith as long as you're towing the line and going to heaven and following the rules and enjoying God's love. But then if you start to see the whole thing as a myth and you're not believing anymore, then that can be a big disappointment. So one way to read this poem is that he's losing his personal faith in religion and doesn't know what will replace it. That the world is a dark place full of danger, and he doesn't have a safety net if he loses his religion. He does say to his wife, though, that let us be true to one another. The implication is that's all we really have. We have each other's love. We can't trust religion. We can't trust government. We can't trust anything but the love we have for each other. So it is a romantic poem in that way. It's just that he seems to be awful gloomy for someone who's on his honeymoon. And that's, of course, what Anthony Hetch then is playing off of is this girl was with a gloomy old guy. She's on her honeymoon. She would like to feel his whiskers on her skin, but instead he's over there not paying attention to her, looking out, getting very sad, maybe a little drunk. And so he steps in for this girl. He's going to offer her a better vacation than the one she's getting from Matthew Arnold. It's funny, and he's having fun with it. So I'll let you read through that. Of course, the parody is going to be much more shallow and narrow in its meaning. After the punchline, that's all you have. There's no serious kind of symbolic theme, unless the theme would be that you shouldn't be so serious about life. You should not get so philosophical and not so moody and brooding over things, but appreciate the good things you have in life while you have them. There's a carpe diem sense to this parody, The Dover Bitch, that just live life for the moment. Drink a good bottle of wine and be happy. Okay, so then the Variations on a Theme by William Carlos Williams refers to the very famous minimalist poem about the plums, which I see as romantic. So sweet, so cold, they were delicious. It's like a note that he left for his wife, that the plums are not there anymore, they're gone, and we share things. You know, we're a couple, and you take things, I take things, it's not a big deal. So that forgive me is a playful kind of forgive me. He hasn't done anything very wrong. He's not in trouble. It could be a note from the woman. I'm just choosing him as the one who stole the plums, but it could go either way. There's a aesthetics to the poem that you see in a lot of modern poetry, which still can be very romantic. So the beauty of the plums is irresistible. A theme is you have to eat things that are there in front of you. You can't resist them. You have to dive in and bite and eat and enjoy life while you can. So there's a carpe diem, a fun playfulness to the original plum poem by Williams, and it displays the minimalist qualities of the image school of poetry. So the image school of poetry, which he is a part of, is trying to capture one image and a mood, and it's quickly in, quickly out, like a snapshot of a poem. So Kenneth Koch, a generation later, is being playful with this poem, and of course he's playing on the idea that the writer isn't very sorry. He's not sorry at all, and if you exaggerate this action into tearing down a house, throwing away money, or giving away money to the homeless man there, burning the hollyhocks or spraying them with lye, you're getting skits, kind of Saturday Night Live skits here in these stanzas, parodying the original. So you have the illusion there. This whole thing is called intertextuality, where you allude to something, play with it, change its meaning. So the second time around you get a different look, a different vibe, and this one again is much more reducing the original down to just comedy, with the psychopathic behavior there. In the last stanza, it's the doctor who just wants this woman, I suppose, in his ward, so he breaks her leg. They're funny, and they're paying homage to the original, I suppose, because the original is so famous. Then other people start playing off of it. It's kind of like the Mona Lisa painting is so famous, you see the image everywhere in playful ways. Monty Python, an old British comedy, did a lot of that sort of thing, taking classical images and then deconstructing them in playful ways. So actually that's one thing postmodernism does. Postmodernism deconstructs classic images, iconic images of our society, usually in shocking or funny ways, and retells the story. Ecclesiastes is an interesting one. It's almost verbatim to the original. So you have Pete Seeger, and then the Byrds band takes the Pete Seeger lyrics and they turned it into a really good song without the music playing. And I encourage you to go online and play the original song. It's kind of a cliche, just the language itself, repeating and repeating very simple concepts here, but there's a power in its simplicity and in its repetition. It becomes like a chant, I suppose. If you look at the original in Ecclesiastes, there's a chanting lyrical quality to it that Pete Seeger saw and almost took it verbatim into a poem for song lyrics. You have the power of the parallelism of the infinitives there and the repeating word time, time, time. You have the power of the imagery, turn, 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 of the earth turning each day, of the orbit of the earth turning around the sun each year, creating the seasons that we experience. And of course then you get the metaphor of the seasons of life, born, death. So you have life as a life cycle. It's very powerful imagery, seasonal cycles of life that all cultures share. It's an archetype that we recognize because it's universal to the planet. If you look up the original, a rhetorical question follows this listing that asks, why should men profit by their labor? The implication is that without God's guidance, everything is futile. And of course, a theme of Ecclesiastes is vanity, the vanity of mankind to think that we can do things without God's approval. So if we don't act in the proper time or the place, if we do things out of sequence, out of God's will, then there's no profit to it at all. So the implication is that you have to be part of the great chain of being and do things in its proper sequence and be part of the whole. There's a very Buddhist concept there as well, if you delved into that. Anyway, those are my comments. I don't want to go over 15 minutes or else I get a phone call from YouTube. Thank you.